So when I wrote this book on innovations, the point of difference that I try to bring out is to look at the innovation process like a non-linear back and forth process rather than the standard way of looking at it as a linear logical process. And I conceived of the human birth cycle and life cycle as being somewhat more metaphorically similar to innovation. And if a concept comes in the human brain and that concept goes around in the human brain through a very little understood biological cycle and finally gets articulated as an idea, then that is the equivalent of a fetus manifesting itself as a baby. But then the question arises, what happens when a person has articulated an idea? Reed has delivered the baby. What happens after that? Well, in the biological cycle, for a period of 2 to 3 years, you would call it infancy. We all know what happens to the baby. The infant slowly takes a recognizable shape. The infant recognizes things around it. And the infant starts to show open-mindedness, reflected as curiosity by touching things, feeling things. It overcomes setbacks. If it cries too much and somebody comes and gives it a little peck, he learns to recognize it. Takes a few risks, crawls around, touches a few things, and then is told don't touch or do touch, and has a continuous learning process. So open-mindedness, overcoming setbacks, taking risks, and continuous learning are the features of what happens to the baby between the age of 0 and 3. And this is exactly what happens to an innovative or creative idea that has been articulated. Because when the idea is articulated, for the first time, other people can understand what it is that came out of the brain. And there are many threats to that idea. Some people may reject it as a bad idea. Some people may say it's not a crazy idea. That's an example of a setback. And the person who's got the idea has to do exactly the same things, keep an open mind, modify the idea, change it around, and try to give a life to the little infant. So Bollywood tells us many stories, and usually they are one of glamour. But one actor who struck me a lot was Shammi Kapoor. As all of us know, Shammi Kapoor was the son of a great thespian. He was the younger brother of another great thespian, and the world expected that he will also become a great thespian. But somewhere early on, after acting in a few films, Shammi Kapoor felt that his métier was different, and he developed his own yodeling style of dancing and doing queer things, exotic things, and had some success as an actor. Very soon, he turned over to becoming a producer, and he made 2 films. I think one was called Bandalbaz. They were not greatly successful, but he experimented. Shammi Kapoor was not under pressure to show that he was yet another Kapoor. He was not afraid of making mistakes. And so he made these movies, and they were not great successes. And soon after that, he embraced the internet. And he became quite a geeky guy, probably the most geeky guy Bollywood has produced, and created his own genre of creativity. And in my mind, while he may not be the richest or the most famous of the Bollywood actors, Shammi Kapoor represents a person who had what Carol Dweck, the psychologist, calls a growth mindset. He was willing to experiment in order to learn without worrying about the consequences. Whereas people with a fixed mindset, Carol Dweck argued, always want to do the same thing again and again because somehow being successful is so important to them. So the idea that in the infancy of a child, it must be imbued with a growth mindset applies equally to innovation.